Ok. Muito bem, pessoal, bem-vindos. Então, boa tarde. Eu sou a Helena Schmidt, aqui da ICF Brasil, e estou aqui, então, para dar as boas-vindas a vocês em nome da ICF. Para quem não conhece ainda, né, a ICF é a maior associação global de coaches, com mais de 40 mil associados em cerca de 140 países. Aqui no Brasil, a gente tem aproximadamente 500 associados, e a gente vem fazendo um trabalho bastante intenso nesse último ano, dois aqui, para que a ICF se torne mais conhecida e mais relevante no nosso mercado de coaching aqui no Brasil. E parte disso é estar promovendo eventos de peso, né, que a gente considera eventos com um desenvolvimento importante para o nosso coaching aqui, trazendo metodologias diferentes, coisas que possam agregar e provocar um pouco a gente pensar fora da caixinha e se destacar nesse mercado também. Então, hoje a gente está trazendo o coaching somático, o Embodied Change, com a Namiko e a Wendy, que são facilitadoras do Instituto Strozzi, da Califórnia, que é um pioneiro nessa abordagem da somática, e traz esse olhar para as sensações, né? Para o que o corpo está trazendo, o que o corpo também fala, além dos pensamentos e emoções. Tudo conectado para que o coaching que a gente esteja trabalhando tenha um maior impacto e traga toda essa escuta ampla que a gente tanto fala, né? Da competência da ICF, da escutativa, e essa escuta inteira, né? Tanto nossa, do que a gente sente, o que a gente percebe enquanto coach, quanto do que a gente percebe e escuta do outro lado também. Então, eu vou passar a palavra para a Namiko e para a Wendy para se apresentarem, falarem um pouquinho delas e do trabalho, e aí já entramos no nosso conteúdo aí. Eu vou estar com o chat ali traduzindo as perguntas de vocês de português para o inglês para elas. E qualquer dúvida, nos chamem ali, tragam suas questões, que a gente está aqui para assessorar e para criar um evento bem legal e bem diferente para vocês. Bem-vindos!
Thank you, Helena. So great to be with all of you today. My name's Namiko, and I'm just taking a moment to just look at all of the faces and really orienting myself to being here across time and space with all of you today. So thank you for joining and bringing your curiosity. I am currently situated in Oakland, California, which is on Native Ohlone land. And I have been studying with Strozzi Institute since 2018. So I've been in the methodology and practicing since then. I am an ICF certified coach, and I actually met Helena through a global mental health company where I was the coaching lead. So I've been in the world of coaching for a while, as well as executive coaching, and before that in the world of international relations, as well as social justice organizing. So I'm coming to you with that background and super excited to dive into what somatic coaching is, really the methodology, and also get into practice. We'll have time to not just talk about it, but to actually feel and be in the work. I will pass it over to my co-facilitator, Wendy, for an intro, and then we'll dive in.
Thank you. Thanks, Namiko. Thank you, Helena. It's so great to be with all of you. I was just feeling this particular sensation of delight around, modern technology can bring us all together, and I'm just really honored and grateful to be with all of you. I am in the Los Angeles area, and I have been in the domain of performance and leadership coaching for over 20 years now, and specifically with the Strozzi Institute for about 7 years. And I primarily teach inside of the somatic coaching program for the Strozzi Institute. I'm the lead teacher there. previous to that, I had a whole other career, a whole other creative career as an actress, and a different type of performance itself, but it all comes together in the end. And also, I came to coaching. I'm also an ICF coach, and came to this work also through my own experience, my own path of transformation. When I was very young, 21, I found out I had cancer, and that was a big turning point in my life and really led me to dive into many methodologies to not only heal my body, but also to really take a look at how I was showing up in my life and in my world. And in that process, all of the modalities that I engaged with that had an impact were based in the body. That journey also led me to become a black belt in Shotokan karate. And when I came around to my time at the Strozzi Institute, it was like all of these paths converged. And I love this work, and I love the opportunity to share it with people. So I'm grateful to be here. The last thing I'll share with you about me is that I'm a mama of a 13 and 15-year-old, both boys, and I'm saying lately, like, I'm a white belt again as a parent with teenagers. So there's that. Always growing, always learning, and looking forward to being with you all. One of the things that we do at the Strozzi Institute is we name the current context of the world. And the reason that we do that is that as we're engaging in transformative work, we recognize that we're not doing that in a vacuum, that we are all influenced by, shaped by, and impacted by larger forces. So we as coaches are impacted by the world and what's unfolding in the world, and also our clients are impacted by that as well. We hold a lens that recognizes that our social location is a part of who we are and part of how we've been shaped and impacted as well, and that all of those things matter as we coach others that have had very different experiences in their lives, and how can we dignify and stay curious about the many things that we're all navigating. So I'm going to invite folks to put into the chat anything that's currently occurring in your country, your communities, your cities, and in the world that you're present to and has your attention and your care. And just as and if you're moved, just put that briefly into the chat so that we can all become present to all that is around us right now. Yeah. Thank you for all of these. We can all just be reading and taking those things in. Thank you. Yeah. And present to how globally we all continue to navigate a global pandemic. Thank you for all of that. So as coaches and in our coach bodies, right, we get wider with our awareness and become a self that can be present to and hold a lot of complexity. All right, so as we step in here, just a snapshot of our time together, we'll be talking about somatics, what it is, the why it's relevant inside of coaching, and also the how of embodied transformation. And then we will, as Namiko shared, get into some practice so that you can have a felt experience in service to your building yourself as a coach of what somatics is and feels like, and how it can support you in that. So with that, Namiko, I'm going to pass the talking stick back to you.
Wonderful. And Wendy, can you go ahead and share screen, and then we will dive in. Great. We can see that. Thank you. And again, I know Helena spoke to this in the beginning, but if you have questions that come up as we're moving through, please feel free to ask them. You can also raise your hand if we don't see it. Your hand raised, just go ahead and throw it in the chat and we can circle back to it. Okay, so over the next, less than 2 hours, we're going to be moving through really what somatics is, what somatic transformation is. We're going to talk about not only the what, but then how it works, and then move into practice to get a felt sense of the work. Next slide, please, Wendy. Great. So what is somatics? Some folks may be familiar with the word somatics. For other people, this may be a totally new word. And so we want to just build a little bit of ground in what we mean by somatics. So somatics comes from a Greek word called soma, which means the living organism in its wholeness. And it's really one of the best words that we have in English, at least, to say mind, body, emotions, relations, and action as well. So we want to start to expand soma from just this idea of mind, body, to include our thinking self, our emotional range, our physicality, how we are, how we be inside of our bodies, as well as the aliveness and the wisdom that is moving through our tissues and our nervous system. Somatics and soma is really like how we make contact with others as social animals as well. And it includes the actions that we take and also the actions that we don't take towards what we care about. So it's that really holistic view of everything we are and how we are in the world. We want to just keep expanding that beyond mind body to include that full range of our humanity. And somatics then is really the process and work with the soma. And this term somatics was coined in 1972 by Thomas Hanna. And as we know, people across time and cultures and geographies have been in intentional practices around body and self as one, and around how we relate to one another from that place. So Wendy and I, like we mentioned in the beginning, are coming to you from Strozzi Somatics, and this is a really practiced methodology. It's over 50 years old at this point and has been practiced with both individual bodies, as well as within organizations and communities across many different cultural contexts. One of the things that I just really love about somatics is that we start with possibility, right? We start with, what do you long for? What is calling for you? What is at the depth your future. And so we want to move away from pathologizing the body and really move towards the body as a wise, alive, inherently intelligent being, right? So again, moving away from pathologization and really like a what's wrong approach, and moving towards what we care about, who we want to be in the world, and what contributions we really want to make. Somatics also, it helps us to increase our awareness about both our conscious and our unconscious habits that we've oftentimes been practicing for a long period of time. And it helps us to find more choice, more agency in our lives, and then to develop these really like practical embodied skills to help us take new actions in the world, even when we're under very familiar pressures. Some of the pressures which, you know, we named in the beginning here in terms of our social context. Another point is that somatics is a really holistic change methodology and is focused on working through the body. So not, you know, sometimes there'll be methodologies that kind of bring the body in as an add-on. And with somatics, we're really going, how do we work through the body, not just on the body? So we want to keep holding inside of our time together here that our bodies are living organisms with 3 billion years of evolutionary wisdom alive in us. Yeah. Anything you want to add there, Wendy? Okay, next slide, please. So let's deepen then into how we're really interpreting body. Oh, apologies if you hear excess noise happening. I am in the city of Oakland. Can you hear me okay still? Okay, great. So the body is the domain of. So what we mean here is, again, starting to orient to a really different interpretation, a really different understanding of the body or soma compared to what many of us may have been taught, right? So fundamentally, somatics is looking at the body and the self as being inseparable. We're moving away from objectifying the body and the body being a mechanism or just a way we go from like a Zoom meeting to the kitchen back to Zoom, right? We're moving away from that view and towards a view that holds the body and the self as interdependent. So from a somatic orientation, the body is the domain of action. It's the place where we take action and where we don't take action. Really just holding it is through the body that we live our lives and that we act in the world. The body is also the domain of mood, right? So we have our moods, we have our emotions through and with the body. And one of the things that we want to keep looking at inside of somatics is how do we widen our emotional range so that we can be present with a wider range of emotions and really a wider range of complexity. Learning to be able to tolerate, to be present with the complexity of emotions and sensations that are living inside of us. Mood here is also like, can I generate a mood? And without overriding what's present, but can I be really choiceful in how I want to show up? And all of this is happening through the body, not just through our cognition, through our thoughts. Okay, another important piece here is the body is the domain of learning. So we've really learned something once we've embodied it and can take action from it. I like to think about this in terms of music, dance, sports, right? It's like one thing to be able to talk about soccer, and it's a much different thing to be able to play it. Or we can talk about music, but it's much different to be able to keep rhythm and time. And we do all of that like through the body. The body is also the domain of coordination with other people. And this will become more apparent through our partner practice later in the session. But we deeply affect each other through how we are, through how we be inside of our own somas and our own bodies. So the body is the domain of coordination, whether it's with one person, like one client, or whether it's with an entire team or an entire organization. We are reading each other's bodies, each other's somas very closely, mostly unconsciously, right? But we make a lot of decisions based on what we read in another person's body. We make decisions about if we want to coordinate with them or not, if we want to team and partner with them, if we want to be a family with them, right? We make all of these decisions around coordinating with other people through the body. The body is also the domain of dignity. And when we talk about the inherent needs of people, which Wendy will speak to in a little bit, we'll come back to this word again. But we hold dignity inside of somatics as a core need for all human beings. It's the ability to really feel our worth and to be able to make contributions from that place. And so really framing dignity here as a bodily phenomena, right? It's a felt experience and not just an idea. Great. Let me check the chat. Doing good. Okay. All right. And then it's through our bodies that we also do all of the things that you see here on the bottom of the slide. So it's how we sense others and the environment. And sensing really carries so much information. And many of us, through culture, through our education, through institutions, right, we've learned to not pay attention to sensation or to move away from the information of sensing. And somatics invites us back into our feeling and our sensing selves. Yeah. And like we mentioned before, through our bodies, we express moods and emotions. And then we also generate interpretations and beliefs. So this one may seem a little bit odd to hear because sometimes we think of a belief or an interpretation as just like a mental process. But inside of somatics, we say that what is embodied in us generates a worldview, generates an interpretation or a belief, right? Just a quick example around this. Prior to what I would call my healing journey, I showed up and I had a shape that was much more like this, right? We can, if you want to, you can kind of try it on. It's like a collapsed heart, eyes down, belly pulled in, pelvis tucked in. And this is kind of how I was going around the world. And you can feel from this place, it's really hard to have an experience of like, I am dignified, I am enough, I am worthy, right? This shaping is affecting my interpretation, my belief about the world. If you try that on, you can just let it go. So yeah, the piece around, what is embodied in us generates the worldview. Somatics also holds that historical experiences literally live in our tissues and muscle memory. So we interpret history through our current shape and through our bodies. And then lastly, we take action. We take action to build a future through our bodies as well. That was a lot of information. I'm going to have us pause and take a breath. Anything to add there, Wendy, or anything in the chat that feels kind of timely to bring in?
I don't have anything to add, but I also have not been tracking the chat. So
okay, it looks like it's in some questions maybe in Portuguese. So Helen, if there are things that feel like you want us to answer, can you just kind of let us know and we'll jump in and answer those. Thank you. Okay, so that was a quick little bit about what somatics is. and how we want to start orienting to our bodies. And I'm going to pass it to Wendy next to talk a little bit more about body language and deepen us into that area.
Cool, thank you. Okay, I'm going to move us to the next slide. Congruence. So this is a little bit of how science is also recognizing the relevance of somatics and congruence. So research tells us that the way that we communicate is about 20% content of speech, 80% body language, which includes our tone, our mannerisms, our mood. And so when we consider being a listener, from the listening position, we're paying attention to, yes, the content that the speaker is offering, but also what is their body language telling us. And what we're looking for is congruence between those two things. Do they match? Are they aligned? And the benefit of congruence is that it automatically instills trust. So congruence equals trust. So when we consider ourselves as coaches in communication with our clients, congruence will be an automatic builder of trust in the space. When there's incongruence, when there's a lack of alignment between what's being said and what the body is communicating, we humans believe the body every time. There's that 80-20 split. So we'll be believing the body every time. And, and congruence itself can be easier to achieve when we're relaxed. When we're in an environment where we feel comfortable, at ease, safe, easier to be congruent. When we're in a conversation that we feel comfortable in. And when we are under more pressure, it can be much harder to stay congruent. And pressure might mean, oh, I need to have a really challenging conversation. Or pressure might mean, as coach, well, my client is coming in with something that's, a deeper end of the pool. Maybe there's a big emotion moving or an intensity of some sort that then causes us to feel a certain amount of pressure. So this idea of congruence, how do we build a self that can be congruent, right, with what we care about, with what we're intending to communicate, even when we're under pressure or stress? So in this methodology, we hold that every human has these three foundational inherent human needs: the need for safety, the need for belonging, and the need for dignity. That all of us come into this lifetime with these needs, and we adapt to our circumstances in order to take care of these three foundational needs. These adaptations, come from this, what we're calling wisdom, from our deepest wisdom, to figure out, okay, in these given circumstances, what do I need to do in order to be safe, to belong, and to be dignified? And when the conditions are such that these are not naturally and wholly granted, right, when we're having to adapt, what can often happen is that we have to forfeit one for the other. So in order to remain safe, we learn how to just put our dignity to the back. In order to belong, perhaps we'll forfeit our safety. Right? These adaptations we hold as wise. Right? They are helping us to essentially survive and make it through whatever circumstances we're in. So this is true for all of us as coaches. It's also true for our clients. what happens is that these adaptations then become embodied. They are ways of being, they are ranges of emotion, they're ranges of mood that we embody because we practice them again and again and again. Of course, for the sake of these very important reasons, safety, belonging, and or dignity. However, we can find that we've moved on in our life, we're in a different phase, we have different cares, concerns, different commitments, and yet we find that those old adaptations keep popping up and they're now not congruent with who we want to be in the world. And so we presence all of this because it's just a part of the whole package of who we are and how we are as humans, who we are and how we are as coaches, and certainly who and how our clients are as well. And so we can call these adaptations habits. For some who've had more challenging or traumatic experiences in their lives, we can call them survival strategies. But all of them are essentially worthy of being dignified, these adaptations. Right? So when we are looking to transform through the body with somatics, we are wanting to identify what are these old habits that no longer work in service to what we most care about. And then also, how can we, instead of being in a relationship of like, oh, I've got to get rid of this, or oh, if I could just stop doing that thing, instead we go, oh, that came from somewhere important. That actually came from my deepest wisdom at a time when it was occurring in order to serve one of my inherent needs. And so instead we hold a mood and a relationality of dignifying these old outmoded habits. Somatics helps us do all of this. This is part of what we're talking about when we speak of embodied transformation. Okay, next slide. What is it? Oh, I kind of already entered into this slide. Okay, so this methodology helps us to transform these places where there's a gap in who we want to be versus how we're able to be, right? That leads us back to the congruence conversation as well, tying this all in. And somatics recognizes that change, it's very difficult to change when we only do it cognitively, when we're only trying to think our way through this change, that change occurring at the level of the tissues, which we achieve by working through the body, is change that ultimately gives us access to new actions, new ways of being under the same old pressures. So we know that we've transformed when our actions align with our vision and values, even under the same old pressures. That's what we're up to here. Okay, one last slide here before we keep moving forward. Neuroscience. Okay, the science. Neuroscience is telling us a lot also about the relevance and really the essential nature of somatics working through the body. So you might have heard neurons that fire together, wire together. What we repeatedly do becomes embodied. Yeah, those old habits or those old strategies, we've done them again and again and again and again, and so they've become embodied. They've become part of who we are and how we be in the world. What we practice lives in our tissues. We could take it back to a sports analogy too. You know, you practice, you know, kicking a soccer ball into the goal again and again and again and again. You're teaching your tissues how to do that. Here's the other thing that neuroscience is telling us is that it takes 300 times longer to think about something than our automatic embodied reactions. An example of this could be I'm walking down the street, I get to a corner, an intersection, I look left, I look right, I step into the street, and a bus comes whizzing by. If I thought about it, oh wait, I looked left, there's a bus, it's quite large, it's moving quickly, maybe I should get out of the way, it might not turn out so well for me. But our bodies react. I mean, that's a clear example of a safety moment where our body, my body in that scenario would react and step me back out of the street in order to take care of me. Yeah. So 300 times longer to think about something than our automatic embodied reaction. Maybe you relate to this, or think of a time when you found yourself behaving in a way that you know, and maybe you even said out loud, I'm not going to do that thing again. I'm not going to do that thing. And there you find yourself doing that same old thing that you wish you would no longer do. That is history operating present time through our tissues. Yeah. We convince ourselves when we're not under particular pressures that, yeah, that's doable. I'm not going to do that again. But then that same old pressure occurs and we find ourselves reacting. This is the domain that that somatics can really support us in unwinding, unraveling, and ultimately carving out a wider range of choice. All right. Candace Pert, the body and mind are not separate, and we cannot treat one without the other. Now, Miko, I'm going to hand the talking stick back to you unless you have something to add here.
Thank you. Maybe we can bring in a question from the chat and kind of speak to that. Someone here is wondering, they said, I would like to better understand the concept of dignity and how it is connected to our body. Do you want to answer that, or do you want to respond, or would you like me to respond?
I'm happy to. And then also we're going to get an opportunity to get more of a felt sense of what we mean by dignity firsthand.
Great.
So I'll answer briefly now. We define dignity in this methodology as our inherent worth. That if we exist, we have value. If we exist, we have worth. And that's inherent. We come in with that. It doesn't have to be earned or proven. That our dignity is our innate value. And as we get into practice, you're going to get an opportunity to explore what that means inside of you and your felt sense of dignity.
Awesome, thank you. Yeah, and this, if I can just add something, it really has me feeling into how trauma and oppression can try and diminish that felt sense of dignity. And so inside of somatics, as we go into practice around feeling our inherent sense of worth and dignity, it's really like reclaiming that felt sense, and not just thinking about it, but being able to really feel dignified inside of your own skin. Okay, next slide, please. Awesome. So why is somatics important for coaches? You probably all have a pretty good sense of this already, but we coach through our bodies. And somatics gives us access to really all aspects of our intelligence, right? Our intellectual self, our emotional, physical. We have more data really to be able to integrate and to work with. And like Wendy spoke to, it's through our bodies and through congruence that we can cultivate trust and safety with clients. It's through our bodies that we maintain a grounded and an open presence. It's through our bodies that curiosity naturally arises, and really through our bodies that we listen, so that we're not listening just with our ears, but we're listening with our whole self, and we're listening to our clients in that same way as well. So the more that we can really, as coaches, start to deepen into our own ability to sense ourselves, to feel ourselves, to notice and name emotions and where those live in our bodies, the more ground and capacity that we'll be able to have to show up for our clients in that way as well, right? So it's like everything that we have been practicing throughout our whole lives really shows up into each session. And somatics in this coaching methodology helps us to build more flexibility and more competency and more skill as coaches, and really allows us to start to practice the kind of relationality we want to be in, to practice that on purpose. So we get to develop ultimately a wider range of options in how we show up, both with ourselves and our clients. I'm wondering, we've just gone through a handful of slides so far and done a kind of brief introduction, but what else is coming up for folks in terms of how somatics is or might be relevant for you as a coach? If you have other things you want to surface, go ahead and put them into the chat. There's another question in the chat as well I can speak to here. Let's see, we say, oh, okay, got it. What is bothering me a bit is referring only to the soma or somatic as a concept, encapsulating the psychic part, and why not say the soul? So if I refer only to soma, where is the unity of body, ego, soul? Yeah, thanks for your question. And we'll speak to this a little bit more when we move into more of the how of somatics. Maybe we'll hold this question till then, actually, unless Wendy, is there anything you want to speak to now?
No, I think that's great. And potentially the next step of where we're going will expand on that.
Awesome. Yeah, thanks for that question. Okay, so if things come up, feel free to put them in the chat, and then we can go ahead and move on to a little bit more about
Námico, tem duas perguntas aqui do Marcelo também. Se vocês quiserem endereçar agora ou mais tarde.
Okay. Sure. Thanks, Helena. Now it's fine, and then we can always hold them if we're going to move into that content later. Yeah. I feel like with this, this concept of dignity, we want to just keep framing that it's not just a concept, and that there's a felt sense of dignity that we are working to feel again. And ultimately, when we start to bring safety, dignity, and belonging back into coherence, it's that process of healing that allows us to establish, to reconnect with our dignity. And there's nothing as well, I just want to say, like, there's nothing that that we do that doesn't affect our psychobiology, right? And so that's another piece to just kind of bring in, is that we are always interacting with the world around us, with each other, with ourselves. I also see, how do you use somatic coaching as a practice in coaching? Yeah, so we'll get into this a little bit more, but this is really an entire change methodology, right? So it's a change methodology and a way of being and working with clients. And we can actually this is a good time to kind of transition into the how, so you can get a little bit of a better sense, right, about what somatic coaching kind of is in practice a little bit more. And then we will move into some core practices as well. Great. So the how. Right, so we've talked about what somatics is, and now let's look at the how. So this is a 3 circles Venn diagram, and essentially it's a way to frame the core components of somatic transformation, which are somatic awareness, somatic practices, and somatic opening. And these 3 core components then are being held within these larger rings of social context, landscape, and spirit, which then, we'll deepen into that in the previous question. So let's start with somatic awareness. And somatic awareness is our capacity to pay attention to and to be with the foundational language of sensation, right? And we hold that sensation is really, it's foundational because emotions can be broken down into a name, an experience, and into sensation. So if I'm feeling really happy, right, I might feel in my body that my chest is opening up. I might feel aliveness running up through my limbs, right? There might be a brightness in my eyes. Just like if I'm feeling really angry, that anger lives in the body as well. And there are sensations, oftentimes warmth, heat, that are associated with an emotion. And many things in life have really taught us to either ignore or to subconsciously numb sensation and aliveness. So as part of somatic transformation, we want to keep coming back into sensation, into our felt sense, and starting to listen to sensations like there's information there, right? Because there is. The next kind of core component in terms of how we start working with folks, in addition to kind of deepening and building somatic awareness, is we bring in practices, somatic practices. And Wendy will take us into this more in a minute, but really, like, we are our practices that we've been doing for a long period of time, consciously or unconsciously. And often these practices are inherited from our families, from social conditions, from schools, culture, right, communities. And what we're doing inside of somatic transformation is saying, okay, are my practices aligned with what's important to me? And also, has my lived experience so far left me with the embodied practices that served my life going forward? And oftentimes, our lived experiences have not left us with the competencies that we need in order to really create the futures that we want. And so inside of somatic practice, then we get to develop new skill and new ways of being really on purpose. And these new practices can be things like centered boundaries, right? Having a range of boundaries, centered requests, and building relationship, building intimacy from center. And within somatic practices, there's always an intention, or we call it like an organizing principle inside of each practice that helps to train us and train our psychobiology into a new way of acting, into a new way of being, and ultimately widens our range of choices for how we are under pressure. The next kind of component here is somatic opening. And somatic opening it's really the process of unwinding, of like uprooting patterns of reaction, patterns of mood and reactivity that live inside of us very deeply, and often like for very good reasons, right? That they could have helped us to survive, to continue existing. And sometimes those old patterns don't serve us anymore, and they're not useful like in real time. So for somatic opening, we have ways inside of this methodology to intentionally uproot patterns that no longer serve us, but that have become so embodied that they're unconscious to us and kind of getting in the way of what we want in life. And you'll see that the three circles here, they're overlapping because they all serve one another, right? So when we're uprooting an old pattern, we want to also be building new practices that can really take root, and all the while developing our somatic awareness and widening out so that we can hold a greater range of sensation, of emotion, and complexity that helps us to really navigate from one way of being in the world to another way of being. So those are three of the kind of core components that we're working with. And now I'm going to look at, move us, kind of broaden us to the outer circles, which are also really essential in how we work with and understand sustainable change. So the first thing here is we are always inside of social conditions, right? Like we talked about in the beginning, and that could be the economy that we're operating inside of. It could be the relationship to Earth and to planet that our culture holds, right? Social conditions could be how race, gender, sexuality are all constructed. These are all part of social conditions that we have been trained in and that are operating in us and through us today, right? And some of these social conditions, some of them serve our freedom and our agency in the world, and others really don't. So when we're working with folks, we want to keep holding that it's not just them in isolation, but that social conditions are also very present. So we're always working within social conditions and how we've embodied them and how we enact them automatically, even when we might not agree with what they are. And broadening out again, this kind of outer ring here, the outside is land and spirit. And this is the piece where I invite you to call spirit whatever works for you, right? That could be like in the chat, right? It could be soul. It could be the mystery. It could be the unknown, the universe, the stars, right? It's whatever is beyond human, bigger than humans. And that is impacting us and shaping us. Land is also very deeply in us, and we are shaped by land, and we shape the land around us, right? Everything that we eat, everything we've ever drank comes from the planet, as do our very bodies. And what our very bodies are made of come from the planet and from land. And these two pieces around land and what I'm calling, and what the methodology refers to as spirit, these are really important inside of somatic transformation because they also tend to be great resilience factors. And, you know, resilience, we could have like a whole 5-day on this and just kind of scratch the surface. But in the research around resilience, connection to land and connection to something greater are often very present and very important. And so we hold that as part of this larger way of working with people and this larger process of somatic transformation. All right, anything to add there, Wendy, as I'm just going to look through the chat again?
No. I think
okay, great. Okay. If questions come up, keep putting them in the chat. Would love to just continue being in conversation around this. All right, so that's a little bit about the how, and we're going to move into practice. And just as a friendly reminder, before I pass it over to Wendy, you know, just continue taking care of your bodies and yourself inside of our time together. So if you need to pause, get water, all of that, we're not going to have an official kind of break. So I just want to remind us to be taking care as we move through our 2 hours together. Okay, Wendy, back to you.
Awesome. Okay, so I'm going to focus on us more on one of those 3 circles, which is somatic practice. And we are what we practice. We're always practicing. Right now, we're practicing something. We're practicing a mood or a narrative. We're practicing a way of holding our body, being in our body. We are always practicing something. In fact, it's impossible for our bodies to not practice. So then the question is what we're practicing aligned with our vision and values? And the recognition that most of our practices are inherited from our families, from our communities, from our wider social conditions. They're inherited in that we've been impacted and shaped by those things. So that becomes a part of what we embody. Have you ever seen a family walking down a street and the kids are standing in the same way, or they're mirroring how their parents stand, or even move or walk? Right, where our bodies are always listening, and we're shaped into how we be in ourselves and what we practice. So since we're always practicing something, why not practice on purpose? This is where purposeful practice can make new things possible. More connection to with what matters to us, more congruence, more trust, more ability to be on purpose, right? To have our attention, our energy, our life force directing towards what we're committed to, so that that becomes reflected more and more and more in our life and as our life. Practice can increase our capacity to lead under pressure. This includes coaching. It can increase our capacity to be with people with more depth, with more breadth, with more competency, to build more safety, more trust, right? More purpose, even inside of our engagements. And purposeful practice can support us in better coordinating with others, whether that's our partners, our families, our children, our colleagues, our clients, coordinating with others. And that purposeful practice shows up as change in our way of being and in our actions. It can show up as, oh wow, the world is reflecting back to me something about myself, like, wow, the way that you showed up was really inspiring, or gosh, I just feel like I can trust you. Right? It shows up in our ways of beings, and then certainly in our actions, and most specifically the actions that maybe we've been really wanting to take, but we haven't been able to. And suddenly we realize, oh, I took that action. I'm a different self who's able to take that action now. That's in my range. And so practice. We're going to practice all together. I'm excited to practice with you all. Here's part of how practice works. The good news is practice is always there for us. We can choose to practice. I've been practicing on purpose daily for many, many years now. It's probable that there are practices that you're already in that support you, and you can bring even more purpose into that practice, whether it's a meditation practice or some sort of movement practice, right? We can bring purpose in so that we're aligning that, right, to teach our psychobiology about the self that we want to be. Practice is a place to go to in the midst of chaos. You'll see in a minute we're going to do a practice that you can harness in the midst of chaos to get more centered in yourself. The way practice works literally in our tissues is that we do something 300 times and we have muscle memory. Maybe you think back to when you learned how to drive a car, for those of you on the call that drive a car or ride a bike. The first time that you do it, and probably the first many, many times that we do that thing, we really have to think it through. Like if I'm using the driving analogy, it's like, okay, hands on the wheel, foot on the gas, stop sign. I have to take my right foot, put it on the brake pedal, right? We have to think everything through. But after we do it again and again and again and again, it lives in our tissues. We can drive from point A to point Z and not have to think through all of those things because we just know how to do it. We've done the reps, 3,000 reps. It's fully embodied. It is who we are. That thing that we're practicing is just who we are. That's what somatics, embodied transformation, makes available. So since we're always practicing something, why not practice on purpose? Let's get into practice. Here's how it will go. I'm going to lead us in a couple of these initial 2 or 3 practices. The larger view is that we'll be in practice together for about the next 25, 30 minutes. And you have a choice in the position that you're in as you practice. So I invite everybody to actually drop your attention down into your physical body. Maybe you just feel the sensation of sitting in the chair that you're sitting in. Maybe you feel the sensation of your feet, whatever they're in contact with. And the options for this first practice are that you can do this standing if that works for your body. You can stay seated if that works best for you. You can even do this first practice lying down if you so choose. So taking those options into consideration, let your body answer how you would like to position yourself as we move into practice. And you can change your mind along the way. I'm going to stand. And if you choose to stand, I invite you to do so. It's not a requirement that you can see the screen, just that you can hear me. So if it works, best in the space that you're in, that you're adjacent to the screen, do what works for you. If you're in a chair, I invite you, if it works for your body, to move a little bit further forward in your chair so that your back is free from contact with the back of your chair and so that your feet can find contact with the ground. If you're lying down, do so with uncrossed arms and legs. All right, so this first practice
And
that
Wendy,
we're
I'm
going...
just gonna step in really quick and say, for folks who are seated, I can model the practices seated.
Great, thanks for that, Monica. Okay, so this first practice that we're going to do is called centering. It is really our central practice in this methodology. And the principle behind this practice is to become more present, open, connected, and on purpose. So first we're going to get present to what is, as we drop our attention down into our physical body, and just scan through your physical body and notice whatever sensations are standing out to you. Maybe you'll notice places of pressure. Notice any places of energy moving or streaming. Perhaps you can even tune in to notice your own heartbeat. And then notice the sensation of your clothing where it's in contact with your body. Notice the sensation of your next breath as it moves in and out. Notice the temperature of the air at your right hand and then your left hand. And then you might even notice a place in your body where you can't really feel much. There's a sense of numbness. And as we do this, we're just orienting into a mood of curiosity. Getting present to what is, welcoming it all, even the uncomfortable sensations. As much as we can, we want to just welcome that and not try to override it. And then as you're scanning through your physical body, if you notice any places where it's like, oh, a little wiggle right there, or a stretch might feel good, then heed those requests. And then as you're ready, let your attention come all the way down to the palms of your feet. And whether you're standing or seated, feel for the weight distribution at the bottom of your feet and explore a little bit, changing that up. And if you're seated, also do this with your sit bones. Kind of shift your weight around to start to assess, okay, that's what off balance is like. And then find your way to equal balance, right to left and front to back. And we're going to center now into 4 dimensions: length, width, depth, and what matters. And our first dimension here, we're going to center into length. That's our vertical line. And we're going to do this first by extending up. We're wanting to rise up from our feet and just bring your attention up through the bones of the legs. Check your knees, make sure they're soft. I'm speaking the standing here, so if you're seated, you'll just travel up through your legs as well. Feet, you want to feel for about hip distance apart. Come on up through the upper leg bones. And just a sense of, and you can literally feel or sense a lifting up as we go. We're going to get to the hip girdle, and then we're going to get to the spine, and just let yourself rise up your spine on purpose. When you get to the shoulders, roll your shoulder blades back into the back pockets. Let your arm bones hang long. Just notice how that impacts your collarbones, opening up the chest a little bit. And then rise up through your neck and then up to the top of your head. Bring your attention to the top of your head and feel, sense, or imagine pressing into the air above you while you also press your feet down through the ground. Sit bones as well if you're seated. So feel a sense of stretching into taking up more space in this vertical line. Then we're going to take a breath in, and as we exhale from the top of the head, we're going to just let that breath go and feel, sense, or imagine letting all of the tissues and organs rest, relax, and let go onto this structure that's lengthening up. Rest your eyes a little bit more back into their sockets. Let your jaw hang long. Rest your tongue into the bottom of your mouth. Let your teeth not touch. That's how our system is designed. Let your shoulders relax a little bit more. Let your heart rest into the basket of your ribs. Let yourself keep settling down. Settle the big muscles on your legs. If it helps, you can tighten them, maybe even your butt as well, and then release. Just to give a felt sense of rising up and settling down all at the same time, centering into our length. We hold that this is the domain of our dignity. This is where our dignity resides. So feel, sense, or imagine where your dignity lives inside of you, inside of your length. Our embodied imagination is also a part of our soma. And so we can let our imagination reveal this to us in a way that's resonant. Okay, keeping that length, we're going to center into our width next. This is the side-to-side dimension. So feel for a deep, deep center line in your body that runs all the way from the front of your body to the back. And we're going to gently and slowly shift from side to side. So come over to your right side and hang out here for a moment. So leaning into our right side brings on more sensation in our right side. Imagine filling yourself in completely from the center line all the way out to your right edges. From your foot all the way up your leg, torso, arm, up through your neck and your head. And then slowly let's shift back to center and then pass right on through, filling yourself in as you go, and go to the left side. Hang out there, feel sensation. Feel from the center line out to your left edges. And then slowly, slowly come back to center. Good. Feel yourself filling yourself out from that center line out to your right and left edges at the same time. With your next natural breath, fill your lungs out side to side and feel that impact on your ribs. Widening out, giving yourself space. Even bring your attention to your visual field, widen it out. Just tune into your peripheral vision and notice how far out you can see. Our width is our relational space. This is our relationality, it's belonging. And so I'm going to invite you to engage your imaginations here and extend your width out beyond your physical body, just 2 feet out. Notice how and where that feels available to you and how you do that. And this is you extending yourself out into greater relationship with the space around you. Now extend your width out to something in your space. Maybe there's something living in your space, a pet, a plant, another human, or even something like wood. Extend out to that and come into relationship with it. And just notice what that produces inside of you in sensation, or even mood, or emotion, or narrative. All of these ways that our soma is speaking to us. Okay, now if it's accessible to you right now, extend out to connect with someone else on the screen. Feel, sense, or imagine. And then notice that someone else has probably included you, right? They're extending out to you. Let yourself let that in. In coaching, we're generating a lot of connection with clients. So how do we stay deeply connected to ourselves and also extend out to connect with and also be a mutual connection? We do this through our width. All right, centering into the next dimension now, carrying forward with us our centered length, our centered width. This next dimension is depth. So that's back body, front body. Let your attention rest into your back body. If it's helpful, just let your weight shift back ever so slightly, whether you're standing or seated. Shift your weight back. Bring sensation online through the tissues. Feel for your own spine. Feel for the sensation of the clothing that is touching your back. Feel the air at the back of your neck. What is at our back is the path that we've walked up until now. All the skill, competency, learning, development, all the people that have mentored us, guided us, taught us, have had our back, all of that is at our back. All the way back to 3 billion years of evolutionary wisdom. So, in whatever way makes sense to you as we explore this, let all of that in and let that fill and fuel you as you move now to your front body. Shift your weight. Just come into the equal balance front to back in your feet or sit bones or legs. And then come into your front body. Bring your attention into front body. We spend a lot of time here. Our keyboards, our phones, our steering wheels, it's all in front of us. We are forward-looking organisms. But be here present in your front body with the same curiosity of, oh, can I feel the clothing on the front of my body? Can I feel my heart in my chest? And also, it is with our front body that we come into relationship with the future. We call it future depth, right? It's part of our depth. So how are we in relationship with what's in front of us? Open field of possibility. Into the future depth, we place our cares, concerns, hopes, dreams, intentions, goals. Yeah. So how do we be in relationship with that mystery? All right, final dimension here. Bring your left hand to your lower belly, as if you put your thumb in your belly button and let your palm fall on your belly. Make contact here and feel the sensation of your belly under your hand. And then feel the sensation of your hand from the belly side. This location, right, let it be an invitation to drop you down in. This is our center of gravity, really. And as we're dropped down into center here, bring to heart and mind someone that you care about. And engage your imagination here in a way that makes sense to you. Presence them, like see them, smell them, hear them, touch them. Engage your senses through your embodied imagination to bring them into more dimensionality, and then zoom in on something that you really care about them. And notice what that produces inside of you. As we build somatic awareness, we're becoming familiar with the actual sensations that tell us, oh, I care. That matters to me. Release your hand as you're ready. All right, and just take a moment to reflect. This was our centering practice. We probably took about, 10-ish, maybe a little more minutes to do that. This is a practice that you can repeat again and again and again. It's a practice that as you become more familiar with it, you can do in a shorter and shorter amount of time. Centering, coming into the full dimension of your length, your dignity, the full dimension of your width, relationality, belonging, the full dimension of your depth, which is your competency and your purpose, your relationship to the future, and your own centering around what you're committed to, what you care about. Centering practice. So just take a moment to reflect. What did you notice about that practice? What did that practice reveal to you about these dimensions within yourself? What did it make possible? All right, we're going to move into a next practice. And this practice we call temple bowl. Yeah, do you have something to add, Namika?
Yeah. For the sake of the recording, can we stop sharing the screen so that the recording can capture you in this next practice?
Yes, thank you for
Cool.
that. Okay, so next practice is called temple bowl. And I brought this practice in, we're bringing this practice in for the sake of building a more robust coaching body. So we are doing it for the sake of building more ground and more capacity. Right? We as coaches hold a space, right, as we work with our clients. And so how might more ground, more groundedness, and also more ability to hold more, which might mean hold more of a safe space, hold more trust, hold more interest, care, curiosity, concern, all of those things that are a part of our coaching body. If we could develop that even more, how might that benefit our clients? So temple bowl looks like this. And Namiko is going to demo from the chair. I'm going to tip my screen down so you can see my legs more. So those of you standing and those sitting, bring your feet to double shoulder width. And then from this position, you want to turn your toes out a little bit, about this angle. So turning your toes out, feet are double shoulder width. And in a moment, we're going to squat down in to our legs. So it's a squat. And then we're going to hold our arms like this. Everybody come on into the shape with me. So if you're in the chair, to build more ground, have your feet and your tailbone come into greater relationship with gravity. You might even press through the bottom of your feet. For those of us standing, we're squatting down in and really feel for your knees tracking out over your toes, so you're taking good care of your structure. But there's some rigor to this practice, right? It's engaging the big muscles of our legs, our butt. And we're feeling this uprightness in our upper body, our dignity, while we're imagining holding a big grass bowl. We want to, as much as we can, explore how can we really let our arms float. So we're holding a lot, but we're not efforting about it. We're letting our legs be our base. All right, let's come on out of it. And then pause and just feel. Feel where there might be more sensation happening. Feel where there might be more aliveness moving through your body. And then let's go back down in. Feet go wide. Those of us standing, let's squat down in. Maybe we'll explore going a little bit deeper this time. Feeling an uprightness in our spine, a length. And then how can we explore our arms just floating here as they hold this big brass bowl. And our legs are really in relationship with the ground. So I'm imagining inviting the energy down through my legs, down through the bottom of my feet. Being with your breath. How can we hold more, have a strong base, and not have it be effortful, what we're holding. And then come on out. Notice, feel. As we build capacity, we're also building a tolerance for sensation. So I notice in this practice, there's more sensation happening in me. we literally had our physical body do something rigorous, and so that causes more aliveness to move through our body. How do we be with that? How do we welcome it? And then in that same way that we've reflected about centering practice, reflect on this practice. What did this practice reveal to you about your own sense of groundedness in your body? And what did it reveal to you about how you hold? And how was it to attempt to practice holding a lot without a lot of effort? Staying curious about what the practice and your body revealed. And then the final reflection question is, what might be possible if you had more groundedness, and more of an ability to hold a lot without too much effort. All right, Namiko, I'm just checking time here. And I'm thinking we're going to move into the practice that you're going to lead us in. Feel open for that?
Yeah, thanks for checking time. Let's do it.
Okay.
We'll move into a, actually, let me raise my computer here so you can see me a little better. Okay. Right. So let's take that aliveness that we generated from that temple bowl practice and from centering. Let's take our aliveness and start to extend it on purpose. So allow the palms to open up, a slight space between the fingers. Yeah. And this is a practice of gratitude. So really being with, how can I feel? How can I generate? How can I extend gratitude on purpose? And being intentional about our relationship with the earth, with the sky, with one another, and with ourselves. So as your hands are extended, just imagine again that embodied imagination. Allow the aliveness that's running in you to kind of come up and then stream down through your arms, through your fingertips into the earth. And bring to heart, bring to mind one thing that you're grateful to the earth for. You can say that out loud or to yourself. I'm holding a lot of gratitude for the redwoods here in the city where I'm staying. Sending gratitude to the redwoods. And as your shoulders allow, you can lift the arms up, lift the hands to the sky. If that's not accessible for your arms, you can just turn the hands up. Lifting up and looking up, allowing the gaze, the eyes to drift up and seeing the room you're in, but seeing beyond that as well, out to the sky, to the universe. Bringing to heart, to body, one thing that you're grateful to the great above for. Could be rain, birds, stars. Just really feeling for the gratitude, a sensation of gratitude in your body and extending that up. Now relaxing the arms out wide and extending gratitude to a person, particular person, or a group of people. Group of people that you are grateful to. Really feel them, extend to them, and imagine them receiving that gratitude as well. And extending gratitude to each of you for showing up and being here, being in practice together. And now softening one hand over the heart, one hand over the belly, and extending gratitude to yourself. What's one thing that you're grateful to yourself for today? And being in this practice of giving and receiving your own gratitude, your own touch. And we're going to come into another practice now. And I'm just going to go ahead and sit for a moment. This practice is called hand on chest. And it's really a practice to help us embody this principle of mutual connection and interdependence. Right, so in mutual connection, we practice feeling for ourselves and another person at the same time, which is both an essential life skill and a really important coaching skill. And, you know, some of us, we might be more conditioned to lose contact with ourselves, with our own needs, with our own boundaries, and to pop out and take care of another. And others of us might be more practiced in taking care of ourselves and losing connection with the collective needs or with another person. So this is a practice where we get to say, how can I keep feeling myself and be in connection with another person? How can I feel for what I care about and what they care about, even if those things aren't the same? That way, neither of us gets disappeared, but we can both really stay in our full dignity, in our full sense of worth, and be connected with one another. That's a little bit about the practice. Wendy, will you demo with me here?
Happy to, yes.
Okay, great. So first, we want to check in. You can do this practice seated or standing up. So again, just checking in with yourself, what would feel best for you, and really what would help you to relax into yourself more. I'm happy to do it seated to demo. How do you feel, Wendy?
Sounds good.
Okay, great. So one person is going to be asking a question, and then the other person is going to be responding to the question. So for this demo, I will be the person asking. When you go into your breakout rooms, you can decide who's going to ask first and who will respond first. So I'm going to be the person asking, and I'm going to just briefly re-center myself again. Just like we did, I'm finding my length, I'm finding my width, my connection, I'm finding my depth back to front, feeling for what I care about, and really just taking a moment to see Wendy here as her own whole person, this other being across the screen. And from a place of care, from a place of curiosity, I'm going to extend my hand out to Wendy, really as if to make contact with Wendy, right on her chest here. And I'm just going to check in with Wendy about the placement of my hand. So anything that you want to adjust here, Wendy?
Maybe a little bit more to the center and a little bit lower. I noticed Zoom thinks you raised your hand, so it raised your hand. Kind of funny.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That's good.
Any other adjustments? Okay. And if it's helpful for the person asking the question and the person responding, you can place another hand over your heart just to give your body a little bit of that felt sense and that feedback of connection. Yeah, so if we were in person and it was okay with Wendy, I would literally be putting my hand on Wendy's chest. And when you're here, keep feeling for your feet. Your feet can be a little bit staggered, and just feeling for your ground here. And I'm extending care, I'm extending my curiosity to Wendy. And then I'm going to ask a question. And the question is, what drew you to becoming a coach? And Wendy, as the person responding, this is an opportunity to really practice authentic relating and responding from a felt sense. So not that place of what we think we should say or what's going to sound good, or check all the boxes, but really feeling for, what does my body have to say? And let your body answer here. Yeah, so Wendy will respond. I will simply practice listening with my whole body. When Wendy is done, I'm going to come back to center, then we'll switch sides and we'll practice with the left side. So we do both sides, right and left, to really work with both sides of the brain and our psychobiology here. A couple of options about the hand. If this does not feel right for the person responding, you can simply ask to have a hand on the heart, right, or hand on the belly, and the person asking the question can extend even if the hand's not out, right? So for some of us, this might feel a little bit too confrontational or have us leave ourselves a little bit more. So if that's the case, we can just be here and I can ask the question and really intending to connect with Wendy from this place. Yeah, so the first question is, what drew you to becoming a coach? And then we switch sides, left side. Why is that important to you? Is the second question. Yeah, and we'll put both of these questions into the chat when you're in breakout rooms, so you'll see them. We'll have about 6 minutes total in the breakout room, so 3 minutes per person to respond and ask the question. So about 1.5 minutes for each question for you to respond, which can be, that's actually a pretty long time. So go ahead and just relax into the question and really practice letting your body speak, connect, and relate to the other person. That's our practice. Anything to add there, Wendy?
Just to clarify that you'll be in both roles. So inside of those 6 minutes, one of you will ask the questions, then you'll switch roles and be in both sides of it.
Thank you. That's right. I'll ask right side, left side. We'll switch. Wendy will ask and I will respond. Any other questions in the chat that come up before we move into breakout rooms?
I see Bob. Bob Hirsch, do you have a question? I saw your hand raised. Maybe not. Maybe it was a gesture.
Okay. All right. Helena, when you're ready, then can you do the logistics of the breakout room, please? And we will give you a prompt as well when you have just a couple minutes left, and we'll put the questions into the breakout rooms as well.
Nemiko?
Yes.
Hi, Elena is feeding. So I'm backing up here. I'm her backup.
Oh, hello.
Yeah, hello, how are you?
Good.
We made up some
one quick
trade.
Great. So we'll have people joining us in just another minute here. They're just finishing up in their breakout rooms. Okay, welcome back, everyone. Welcome back, welcome back. Good to see your faces here. We have just, under 10 minutes, so we want to take a couple minutes here and see how that practice was for you. Yeah, if there's anything that came up for you in terms of relating to another person in that way. Like, what was it like to stay connected to yourself, connect to another? What did you notice about your shaping around that, about how that impacts your coaching? Anyone feel called to share either in the chat or to come off of mute?
Bom, eu achei bastante poderosa a conexão que você cria, né, com essa técnica. Eu já uso algumas técnicas semelhantes a essa, né, no que diz respeito à neurolinguística, né, a conectar com a memória celular, barriga, né, começar com a barriga. Mas nunca tinha visto o que vocês propuseram, a gente utilizando uma comunicação entre pessoas diferentes, né? Ou seja, eu utilizava ajudando a pessoa a se conectar com ela mesma. Ela, muitas vezes, com a mão no sintoma, onde ela sentia a dor, e a outra na barriga, para tentar extrair dali respostas autênticas sobre aquela dor, né? Sobre aquela questão, aquela sensação somática. Mas a conexão entre duas pessoas foi a primeira vez que eu experimentei, fiz o exercício com a Marta e achei muito legal mesmo.
Thank you. I'm curious if you're open to sharing, like, did you notice anything about yourself in that connection practice that you want to share?
The word that came to me was love. And what I felt in this connection, why did you become a coach? Oh, the only word that came is love. Was a very profound word.
And where did you notice that in your own body?
Here. It's a little heat spreading over here.
Thank you. Thank you for taking the risk of sharing that with all of us, and for your noticing around where that might live in you and how it arises.
Yeah.
Thank you. We have only 5 minutes left, so I'm going to wrap up this portion of the practice. Marta, I do see your hand raised.
Oh, cool. Yeah, I wanted to bring that to your attention.
Yeah, thank you. Marta, do you want to step in and ask a question?
No, I was only about to share, but it's fine. Let's take care of time.
Okay, is there anything that you want to share in like a minute or less?
Less than that. So when I was practicing with Marcelo, I could feel my palm really warm and really connected with him, and it was really amazing through the digital space. And when he connected with me and asked me the question, the first thing I could sense was my heart pumping so hard, and it was like, wow. So thank you for the experience.
Thank you for sharing, and good noticing inside of that practice as well. Wendy, I'll pass it to you.
Yeah. Appreciating all of your willingness to lean in and try this new stuff on. Just appreciating the learners that you are and your willingness. And always, I'm reminded of the power of practice and how the practice itself is the revealer of ourself. the practice brings us into a place where we get to discover, oh, wow, here's how love emerges, like arises in my own soma. Right? Here's what's happening inside of me as I'm in this practice on purpose to build capacity and competency with mutual connection, staying deeply connected to myself while I'm also connected with another. So also appreciating what folks are putting into the chat, and if you feel moved, keep that stuff coming. The warmth in your hands, the answers in your skin, so beautiful. And then to stay in the question, what might what I noticed make possible inside of my coaching? What might more mutual connection make possible in my coaching? And just as we wrap up here, we explored some practices today. We explored centering, we explored temple bowl, building ground, while we also hold without effort. We explored gratitude practice, and we explored mutual connection through hand on chest. And my invitation to you is that if any of these practices resonated for you, how might it be if you took those on as a daily practice for the next week? Just to see what happens. Just to see what it's like to practice on purpose for the sake of teaching your psychobiology how to be more competent in that way. And that all of these practices we brought to you today purposefully to support you in building your competency as coaches. And these practices and embodiment itself takes time and reps. And so we ask that you don't take these practices into your clients. Don't take them to your clients. Utilize them for your own development right now. And if you're curious about developing the ability to bring somatics into your coaching practice, come and see us at the Strozzi Institute, and come and check it out, because there's a lot to explore there. Any last things to add, Namiko?
That feels complete for me. Thank you all. Yeah, and Helena, I know you wanted to wrap us up the last minute.
Yeah, over to you.
Só agradecer a Namiko e a Wendy por criarem esse espaço para a gente aqui de aprofundamento, de conexão, e a todos vocês pela presença, aos que tiveram que sair mais cedo também, por estarem juntos, conectados, abertos aqui a essa nossa experiência toda. Para quem quiser os CCUs, a gente vai estar distribuindo os CCUs de RD baseado na presença aqui do Zoom. Então, se por acaso alguém não receber, pode entrar em contato com uma de nós aqui da diretoria ou com o suporte, com a Clélia, e aí a gente dá uma olhadinha aí se não chegou até vocês. Muito, muito obrigada e uma ótima noite.
Tchau, pessoal.
Tchau,
Descanso.
parabéns.
Tchau, tchau.
Thank you.
Bye bye.
Tchau.
Oi,
Thank
tchau,
you.
tchau.
Bye bye.
Bye.
Tchau,
Bye.
tchau. Thank you.
Linda.
Joel!
Oh, que linda.
Beijo.
Oh.
Thank you.
Tchau, Gus.
Tchau, Gus. Obrigada. Obrigadão.
Helena, preciso voar aqui, depois a gente faz o
Camila,
debriefing.
vai. Só vou dar um tchau.
Parabéns.
Aqui. Beijo.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Wendy.
It was wonderful.
Namiko.
I really enjoyed it.
It was wonderful to be
glad.
here with all of you. Yeah.
That was great to be with you all.
Yes. We'll stay in touch. Patrícia, tu tem alguma pergunta a mais aqui? Quer? Não? Tá no mudo.
Não, nenhuma dúvida, só agradecer mesmo. Foi ótima a participação aqui, tá?
Tá bom.
Obrigada. Tchau, tchau.
No questions, just wanting to thank for the
Oh,
the
thank you.
workshop. Thank you so much. And